here we are at the end of the Leisurely Gentleman's Tour of New Zealand.
Yep.
How's it been for you?
Challenging.
Why?
Not that leisurely.
Certainly the hike for me was the highlight, and experiencing a bit of New Zealand wilderness was just awesome. So, the freshness and newness of the country is pretty remarkable.
I love the landscape here. I think it's amazing. I think New Zealand is just a beautiful, beautiful country. The mountains, the lakes, the waterways, the clear air. A lot of the people just have a connection with the landscape and the outdoors. It's not necessarily because they're greenies or whatever, but because it's just there and they have to deal with it all the time. And it's something really invigorating about it. I love that.
Well, the Onslow is a rarity, so it's amazing it still exists. And it's just a beautiful boat to be on. So it's triple expansion steam engine, and it's real steam, powered by Karl, and just a great thing to see. Got down to the engine room, and you can walk right across the top of it, see the fireboxes, see the stoker feeding all the fireboxes, see the engineers working the engines, and it's just quite amazing.
Well, the walk was in parts pretty hard. Some of the trails were pretty steep, and it really required an effort to finish some of those days, particularly the first day. That was pretty hard, but no, it was great. The scenery was largely hidden and mysterious, but there were moments when it broke out that just left you with your jaw open terms of the natural beauty. The second day when we pushed off from Rickburn Falls Hut to Harris Saddle, that was just some of the most beautiful country I've ever walked through. The weather was a bit showery, very low cloud, and then at times the cloud would lift and just reveal the extreme beauty of the area that we're walking in. And when I say extreme, I mean that we were surrounded by these peaks that were just so sharp in their ascent that nothing was growing on them. It was sort of rock scree from the pinnacles down to quite a low level. But certainly where we were walking through, it was just a low scrub that just had a real beauty to it that, in my experience, has been unmatched. The glacial lake, Harris Lake, just before Harris Saddle, walking up from the Rickburn Falls Hut. That was the most spectacular place I've ever been to in my life. The natural beauty there is just really indescribable. It was a really emotional kind of moment, really, in just seeing that and having my breath taken away. It was really unexpected. After that, the cloud came in again as we left Harris Saddle, and we were probably denied perhaps some of the better views across the southern valleys towards Fiordland. It didn't detract from the experience because just the intensity of the walking was still, you had to concentrate where you were walking. It was rocky, it was a tight track, there were sharp drop-offs. And then, dropping down into Mackenzie Hut, that was pretty special because the cloud did lift again, and we got views down to Lake Mackenzie and Lake Mackenzie Hut, and that was pretty spectacular. And then the next day off to Lake Howden Hut, and whilst not a particularly long day and not necessarily that hard in terms of the hills that we had to climb. We were walking in sleet. It was pretty, constantly raining or drizzle and sleet, turning into snow much later in the day, although we weren't walking in that. We fortunately got to that before the heavier snow fell. The falls there, I can't remember the name of the falls, but they were spectacular and powerful. Erland, that's correct. Yes. That was great. And then the last probably 2 kilometres, maybe 3 kilometres walking into Lake Howden was just really beautiful. Walking through the beech forest, mossy undergrowth. It was so green, so serene, really, and just really, really pretty. It was really nice. And then the walk out of Lake Howden, we were for a brief moment on the side of a hill where a lack of vegetation, and it was a sunny day, gave us the opportunity to see the ranges that we'd probably missed out on the previous 2 days, and they were quite spectacular. And then we got to the divide, and it was just the end of a really intense 4-day walk. we headed off from Clyde to Omakau, and we included an extra section by travelling along the river trail before joining the rail trail at Alexandra. It was a hot day. We had a beautiful morning in the dappled sunlight through the trees following the river, and that was a really delightful ride of I think about 16 kilometres to Alexandra. And from Alexandra we were out in the open, and it was quite warm, and riding effectively a gentle uphill slope, but you know, as the day got longer the slope seemed to get harder and harder. And then there was a final hill that we had to climb up called Tiger Hill, which was probably the steepest part of the whole ride. That you know, took a bit of effort to get up there, but the views through that area were spectacular. Just beautiful valleys, lovely farmland. There was the schist outcrop country, which was quite amazing to look at and to ride through. It was really hard country and gave you an idea of, you know, probably what it would have been like for you know, the earlier settlers to deal with that kind of country. And then we conquered Tiger Hill and got to Omakau and had a pretty nice dinner at the local pub. The next day we were off to Otahuhu, and that was a pretty good day, really. I mean, we started off with a tour around Ophir, which is close to Omakau. It's an old gold mining town, and we crossed the local suspension bridge, which was pretty old, pretty spectacular spot where it crossed the, I think it was the Manuherikia River, and then from there we just climbed up, I think, the Ida to the Ida Valley. We went through a couple of tunnels that were, one was quite long, I think a couple of 100 metres long, and the other was maybe 100 metres long, and they were built back in the 1860s or 1870s, and in pretty good nick, really, for their age.
Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful curve.
Yeah. Have a good trip.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Same to you.
And then from there it was a bit downhill, and went to pulled into a place called Hayes Engineering, where the guy had invented a whole heap of things that was not just used in New Zealand but used around the world for making life easier for farmers. And we had a nice lunch there, and then noodled into Otahuhu for our accommodation there at the local backpackers. Had again a nice meal at the local pub, and then from there we rode the next day to Ranfurly. Well, he's a very sexy man. Wish them a kiss, mate. We had to ride uphill from Otahuhu, and started off a bit hard because we had a bit of a headwind. We stopped again at a local gold mine, explored a local gold mine, and Drew enjoyed sticking his head through a couple of old steam engines that were left on site. And Then we pushed uphill from there, and we had this headwind. And then fortunately the trail just veered around sufficiently that the headwind wasn't so bad, and then we're into the protection of a gully as we rose to the highest point of the track, which was 618 metres above sea level. Interesting how you remember these factoids. And we struck the maximum height of the track, and then it was downhill from there. And boy, what a difference riding downhill makes. We pushed on from Wedderburn. There was came across an accident on the track that was attended to by an ambulance. Not exactly sure what happened, but an older woman was certainly in need of care and was receiving that care, and eventually was helicoptered out. We continued on to Ranfurly, and it would have taken us, I don't know, an hour to travel what probably took us 2, maybe 3 hours to travel when we were pushing uphill. Ranfurly was nice. We got picked up to by the owner of the Waipiata Hotel, which is maybe 10 kilometres away, and we went to the Waipiata Hotel for dinner, and where we tasted his wonderful pies, and we had a great meal there. And then next day from Ranfurly we rode to Hyde, and again it was largely downhill with a couple of small uphill sections through the gorge, the Taieri Gorge, and again through another tunnel. The gorge was great. It was really nice riding through there. Again, sort of schisty, really hard schisty country.
A dusty road, hot sun beating down. A dusty road, way over on the wrong side of town. I've been this way now many a time, no other way of going round. Hey traveling man, where's gonna be your next setting down? Hey traveling man, if you take me with you, it'll be my round. Oh, that traveling man keeps on traveling round and round.
And then to the Hyde Hotel. We got there probably by about 12:30, so we travelled about 30 kilometres in a little over probably 2.5 hours. We didn't do much that afternoon, just relaxed, and then had a meal at the Hyde Hotel, which isn't a licensed hotel. Then from Hyde we rode to Middlemarch to finish the tour, and again it was pretty straightforward riding from Hyde, largely downhill, and the countryside became a bit less interesting, I suppose, as we approached Middlemarch, but still quite beautiful. The Hyde train crash site.
What can you tell us about it?
21 people died in 1943.
Train had been coming along The rail here reached a speed of about 120 kilometres per hour. It came off the rails.
And that was the end of our rail trail tour, and it was great fun. I was sore. I'm still a bit sore now, a number of days later, but it was a great thing to have done and great to have achieved as well. Final component to our gentleman's tour was a day ride from Roxburgh through the Roxburgh Gorge along the Clutha River and back to Clyde, and that was in total about around 45 kilometres, but it included about a 10 or 12 kilometre ride on a jet boat because the rail trail doesn't continue through that section of the gorge. So we got dropped off at Roxburgh around 10 a.m. And we pushed off from Roxburgh, had a bit of an uphill ride through to the Roxburgh Dam, Roxburgh Village, and then which is, a hydro dam. It is, monolithic engineering. It was maybe, 50 or 60 metre dam wall, so it's a substantive dam. And then rode across the dam, and then the cycle trail begins in earnest from there. And that was a lot of switchbacks down towards the river, really harsh country, that back into that really incredibly difficult schist country where hardly anything grows. Really steep sides to this gorge, and in parts quite a challenging ride in terms of some of the climbs that were involved. The boat driver, Lawrence, was happy to take us early. We were the only, his only customers for that time slot, and he was great. He got us onto his boat, got us to put on our life jackets. We took off, and he just showed us all these little highlights along the gorge of the previous gold trail days of when people were first pushing into the area in the 1860s, and highlighted a number of huts. It's not quite the right word. There are a lot of erosion points in the rock where it was like a little escarpment or something like that, where some of the gold miners had bricked them in with the local stone and made some very rudimentary habitation.
Nothing to burn. These hills were totally barren.
They keep themselves warm.
Well, some entrepreneurial characters discovered trees at Makarora, which is not exactly next door, way up the top of Lake Wanaka. Right. They would cut these trees down, they'd make these log rafts, and then they would, the outlet of Lake Wanaka was getting the Clutha River, the whitewater raft down here, sell the wood for exorbitant prices to the miners, and then chop it up, chop the raft up, sell it off as wood, go back up and make another one. Yeah. They reckon it was always better actually be supplying the goldfields and be the... so if you arrive with loads of grog or flour or picks and shovels, you were in.
And then after, maybe half an hour, about 40 minutes on the jet boat, we got to Doctor's Point, where the rail trail ride began again. And from there, We had, I think, one sort of decent climb, but otherwise it was fairly straightforward riding from there to Alexandra. It was very nice. It was hot by this stage, probably 23, 24. And got to Alexandra, and then we continued on the cycle trail that we'd done on the first day of our rail trail, which was riding along the Clutha River through the trees that abutted the river.
1, 2, 3, 4. We're climbing up the mountain. What do you think we'll see up there?
Got to Clyde, dropped off our gear at our accommodation and the Hartley Arms, which is really a lovely place, and then rode back to the Trail Journeys office on the other side of Clyde, dropped off our bikes and our panniers, and that was the end of a wonderful riding journey through central Otago. Other highlights, just meeting some of the people that we met along the way. People were really open and generous, and that was really lovely. I really enjoyed riding through the schist country. That's just a really amazing landscape, quite evocative. And then, travelling with my compadres, Karl, Drew. It was great to be able to do this kind of thing with these guys. It was just a great opportunity.